Thank you for the invite. There are a lot of faces that I know here. Probably have seen everybody at least once, and a lot of the more times than I needed to. Other than that, my demonstration today it's a demonstration I call log to a bowl. We're going to start with a piece of wood. You know, you said, well, why don't you just buy a piece of wood and turn a bowl or whatever it is? Because it's cheaper to turn wood that you find. And I'm going to show you how to process. Do you guys have a raffle where you raffle off wood and that kind of stuff? Okay. Well, a lot of clubs do, and even if you get a log, somebody give you a log, you know, what do you do with that? And it's amazing, and I go around, and the number of people that have been turning for years and really don't know what to do with the log. They look at it and say, well, where do I even start? So this happens, it started out as a log this way with a crotch. And I find that I like the crotch because the grain is a little more interesting that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this piece of wood, hopefully make a small bowl out of this, take the other side and make a small natural edge bowl, and do like they do on television, like go in the oven. By the way, this wood is wet. That means that whatever I turn today is going to warp. And you will see the one bowl that I turned like a normal bowl is going to be left about 3/4 of an inch thick, and I will take it back and dry it. I'll talk a little bit about my drying process, and then one day once it gets dry, I'll put it back in warp on the lathe. And one of the reasons you leave it thick is that you've got enough bowl left to turn the warp out and still have a bowl. The other part, I'm going to do a natural edge bowl. And this piece that's going to be wet that I'm going to turn, just like they do on television, I've got a bowl that is dry. I'm going to show you how it looks warped and how we process that into a bowl that we can start to sand and finish. This is a crotch piece. If you notice, the tree went up this way and the crotch went out like that. And take this piece of wood, and the first thing I would do, if it were bigger, let's see, I have to figure out which side I'm going to use for my bowl. One side I'm going to use for natural edge, the other side I'm going to use for just a regular bowl.
Yeah, that's what
but let's just start. I'd cut this in half.
They're cleared up.
And I got two halves.
You did that with a pocket knife?
Yeah.
He's good. That's a really sharp.
You should see my sharpener. Okay, I've got two halves here. So there are times when I'll use this whole thing as part of the bowl. Take the bowl, make the bowl in the middle, and have these wings stick out there, but I'm not going to do that today. This is the piece that I'm going to take the bowl out of. Bandsaw is essential if you're going to turn. Oh, by the way, I have a, what do you call it? A disclaimer. Everybody here is a turner. How many people who've never turned, who don't turn at all? Okay. If you never turned at all and you do other woodworking, I'm like the neighborhood drug dealer. It's my idea to get you hooked on turning. So if you leave now, this little morning, getting up early, it's all it's going to cost you is getting up early. If you stay, it might present some problems to you. I'll take this, I put a little circle on this, and I'll cut this out, and I get a piece of wood like that.
Well, that knife is sharp.
But you know, I do this because one day I wrapped the piece up, I cut it and everything, and the guy says, you ought to do that all the time. He says, because I had no idea that's the way you processed it. Cut the circle out, and I've got my circle.
Now, this is ignorance on my part, was that cut when it was green?
It is green.
Before you wrapped it?
It's
Yes.
still green. It's still
Okay.
green.
It's still
No,
green.
oh, still green.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah.
When was that cut, Frank?
This is probably couple of weeks old, maybe even longer than that.
But
you
I'm
know.
just saying, you cut it immediately when you found the block and got it, you cut what you wanted.
Oh, no, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no, no. It's been sitting there a little while.
Okay.
Till I get to it. Okay, here's my round piece. This is my bowl. I'm going to literally take a bowl out of this. One of the first things I want to do is put a foot on this thing, and I may have some problems here because I didn't drill the hole in this side. Or maybe I did, and I did I do the right one? Bring tailstock up, hold it between centers. And usually if I'm doing a crotch that's got some pieces that I'm going to have to shift this a little bit. Let me take a look here to make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah, that is right.
You got what you got.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get it as square as I can. And as I go along, you will probably see me shift this a little bit. So I get the maximum amount of wood out of here. This side slopes off a little bit. Tools. Get it in there nice and good. For my people up front.
The free hand. Okay.
Take the catch position.
Yeah. Actually, you're the guy. That's my catcher.
He's a Turner, you better pick somebody else.
What, he's what?
He's a Turner, you better pick somebody else.
Well, he's still a catcher. Or you get catch or get hit.
He knows how to do it.
He knows how to catch.
Okay. So all I want to do is make this round, put a foot on it, so that I can grab it in the chuck. I'm going to shape the outside as best I can, turn this around and hollow it out. My little 3/8" bowl gouge is one of my favorite tools. Unless I'm doing a lot of work where say I'm trying to process a bunch of bowls, I'll go to a bigger gouge. That's a 5/8". But my little 3/8" bowl gouge will do almost everything I want it to do.
Frank, what is that on your couch?
This,
Yes.
and rather than using the wrench to unloosen it, to change it, this little knob, there's a company out in Oregon that sells, it's called GWA company. They sell tools, and I bought this when I was out at San Diego a couple of months earlier. My first idea here is I just want to get this around. Start on the edge. Little pull cut. I remembered to turn it off. All I want to do is get this round. I'm using what we call a pull cut. I've got room in there now, so I need to adjust the tool rest, come back up to the wood. You want to keep that space at its minimum. And all I'm trying to do is make the outside round. Too big of a cut, make a lighter cut. Go all the way to the top, but I know what I'm working with.
Doesn't that give you an urge to get up there with that tool, Hans?
Turners can't help themselves. Yes, sir. I thought you held your hand up.
What kind of wood are we talking?
Piece of cherry. It's a little. And it's lost a little bit more moisture than I thought. Stop often, check and see where you are. Here. If I tilt a little bit, If I go around, if I see where my finger is, I measure the bark and cambium layer here. Over here it's a little higher. If I want it even, to get as much as I can, because this is going to be flat. This is not going to have the natural edge on it. The minute I change that, bowl's going to be warped. I've got to turn that the wobble. It's going to have to turn the wobble out. Another thing about turning a bowl or anything, especially if you're new at it and you don't have or you can't get a picture in your mind, go get a picture of something that you like. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, because everything that's been done, every shape that's been done, or that you think you might want to copy, has been copied throughout the eons of time in clay, wood, or metal of some kind. So unless a caveman walks up to you and say, you stole my idea, I had a patent on that, forget about it, you know. Really, I mean, everything's been done at least once. Just flattening this out now, putting a foot, not a foot, but a tenon on so I can grab it in the chuck when I turn it around to hollow out the inside. Remember, this is wet. It's like I said, it's not as wet as I thought it was, but it's still going to warp. So let me get my tenon on here.
Can you turn a slab that's been sitting there for like a year or so?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. The longer it sits, the better, less work you've got to do. Of course, it beats you up.
Is that right?
Wet turning is so much easier. Okay, now I've got to say, I know that this little part here is going to go away. I've got to come in and decide how big of a place I'm going to have this thing's foot this is going to set on. That's about it. So between here and here, some material. This portion here is where the bowl eventually will sit. That'll be the foot of the bowl. This is where you decide whether you want what sort of slope or what side curve you want on the bowl. Let me see where I'm at here. One of the things I like to do in most cases, if I can, I like to leave a little rim. If you ever picked up a bowl or anything, if it has no lip on it, it feels like, unless you grab by the inside, you feel like it wants to slip out of your hand. But if it's got a little rim, little edge on it, you feel like you can hold it a little more securely. Okay. I'm going to do that little slope, and come up here with just a little rim on the outside. This needs to be good, but it does not have to be perfect, because you're going to come back and turn it. Now, this little portion that I'm going to grab in the chuck, I need to make sure that that angle in there that goes this way and that way is a perfect 90 degrees. If it is not, when I get ready to put it in the chuck, it will wobble on the make that a little more substantial. Despite what I said, I don't want this flying off and hitting anybody. Cleaning up that edge in there, so when I turn this around, Yeah, it gets in there real nice and easy, that's all. I mean, I can't get in there. I can get in there with this, but not that little angle in there. Like I said, it's got to be 90 degrees. Okay. I'm finished with my outside. Remember, this is going to go and get, wait while, and if you look here, I don't know, can you see the grain in this? The different kinds of, I'll pass this around, how it's coming out. Now, if this was a straight piece of wood, straight piece of the trunk, I'd get nice straight grain, which is all right. But I'm getting the little feathering from the crotch there. I'm getting this where a limb went out. It's just a little prettier. Okay, that's good. Knockout bar?
No, it's down there at the tray.
I came by yesterday to see what size lathe you had.
I think you could have just called me.
I didn't trust you.
I didn't
I probably didn't know how late they got.
yeah. Okay. Now, this side I'm turning around. No, it actually, the way that is, I could make this a natural edge, but I'm not. I'm just not going to do that with this piece. Let's see how well I did. And if I did a good job, this should run true. And it's off just a little bit. Either I didn't set it in there perfectly, or worse. Okay, I see where it's leaning. Got a little. Really's not going to bother this piece too much, because you'll see how I straighten that out when it dries. This is where a little bark may fly here.
Catcher?
As he smiles.
Yeah, it has never happened to him, probably.
He's not missing any teeth anywhere. Not to be noticed.
Make sure. Well, that's my little safety thing is, whenever you're turning, make sure three things. If you remember these three things, 90% of the bad things that could happen to you on a lathe's been eliminated. Make sure the wood clears the tool rest. Make sure it clears the bed of the lathe. And make sure that your speed is comparable. It matches the size work you're turning. There are a lot of times you forget that the last thing you did was sand a piece, and everybody turns it up when they want to sand, and really you should go slower. And they forgot, and they come back and they put this big piece in there, and it's at 2500, and they hit the switch. So check the speed, make sure it clears the tool rest, the bed of the lathe. 90% of the bad things that could happen have been eliminated. Okay, now I want to I'm going to get all this bark area out of here. Another thing about, you just don't jump in there. The bevel area around here, I just want to match the surface I'm trying to take out. Nice light little cut. Tiny little cuts because I'm hitting and missing. A little more. Try to save just a little bit more of this. Be a little smaller, but it'll be a little higher. Okay. Maybe one little bit more. It'd be a little smaller, but this is the piece I don't want the bark on. Remember, this is not the final shape. Okay. So I'm going to come down to my lowest point on the bark there, and that's going to be the top of this small bowl.
Frank, did you decide you're gonna make that a natural edge?
No, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I didn't. No.
This one came out so well, but you keep going away.
I might make this a natural edge bowl. I think it's going to look a little better if it is. Normally, this would come up a little higher and I'd have a little thicker bowl. But I think to get the most bowl out of here, I'm not going to make this flat on the top. Okay. I am going to make a natural edge bowl. I've got, in fact, unintentionally, I got the thing lined up, the high sides and the low sides that I can. So, but the other thing it's doing is this angle here, it's almost 90 degrees. And for bowl turning, going like that, it's the worst thing you can do, especially for newbies. This little corner in here is the hardest thing to sand. It's hard to get into, and it's hard to get the little bumps and bruises out of. Get this back out of the way. Get rid of my turner's elbow. Let's see. So gently take out. Normally I wouldn't have the bark on this piece. I'd just go in and scoop this out, leave it about, and that's no, don't use your tool rest as a cutting tool. Did I get the camera guy?
Yeah, we haven't had anybody send the cameraman running before.
Okay, let me get in here.
Come on over here, Bob.
Okay, it's about down to where I want to be. That thickness is all right. Remembered. Okay, now I'm just wasting material. And just like I would do, if this is a dry piece of wood, I go and I try and establish my wall thickness on the outside before I release all that mass. The minute I take all that out, I release stresses, the wood's got to move. If the wood's dry and this is my final time of turning it, by the time I get to the bottom and try and come back up here, it's warped, it's wobbling out of shape. I can't go back there. stop often and see what's happening, what you've done. So another thing, make all your cuts, make it like it's your last cut, and then when it becomes your last cut, you don't have to practice because you've been doing it all along. So make all your cuts. As clean as you can. That's going to be fine. Remember, if this had been deeper, the bark wouldn't be on. This would be a bowl coming up there with a flat side on it. But that's my wet bowl. It took me a while, and while you're looking at this, look at how the grain is running, and remember that if this was further down on the tree, with this not being in the crotch of the tree, I would not have that much movement in the wood. Should I do that? No. Since we got this up, let's do a natural edge bowl while we're waiting for that one to dry in the oven. We'll come back and we'll show you how we finish that one.
Is this one already dry?
No, this is off the side. This is the opposite side.
Okay, I thought you had those.
No, this is the opposite side of that piece I just got that out of. Now,
Frank, did you select this side to be the base of that because the way the grain was going, or?
yes. Because that's where the crotch was, and I kind of picked that so I would pick up that feathering. Now, there are a lot of times, fortunately, there are a lot of times where the limb, the knot will come out, and you can fight with that and put glue on and stuff like that. But fortunately, the knot didn't come out of that side. But sometimes if you want to fight with the knot, that adds a feature to it, you know. But in this one, I got, the knot's not there, but the crotch, you can see where it wants to crack in there. But that's going to add, that's adding to the beauty of that piece of wood. Now this piece, we are deliberately going to make this a natural edge bowl. Everybody understands that that was supposed to be a bowl without the bark on it and how that was going to happen? Okay.
Looks perfect to me.
Okay, getting back to my drying process.
Frank, for non-turners, why don't you point out that recess in Parkside?
This?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Carve that out so that when this goes on, you crank it in, it wants to drill itself in. So if you take the bark away, the cambium layer, it should be all right. If the wood is real soft, occasionally you do have to back it out and clean it out. We talk about natural edge bowls. I like bowls, but in the natural edge, I prefer kind of a platter as opposed to a real natural edge thing here.
Right, what do you coat those natural edges
Oh,
with?
well,
When you get done?
I keep forgetting about that. I'll tell you in just a minute. Hang on, just. At one time I did like everybody else, not everybody, but occasionally people will put end grain sealer on there, let it dry. A piece of wood like that, that size probably would take 3 or 4 months to dry, get down to 7 or 8% moisture in it. And one of my buddies brought it to my attention that when he's turning wood and he's making vase, this guy makes stuff for shows, and he says, if I rough something out, I don't want to, he says 6 months later I forget what I was trying to do. So he wanted a way to get it dry as quick as he can. So he went to, and I eventually went to, denatured alcohol. And I can take a piece, I mean, that's throwing water, and I did some pieces earlier in the month that's just slinging water all over the place. Turned them down to about 1 inch, 3/4 of an inch, put them in the alcohol, and in probably 16 to 17 days, it's down around 10%. In about 22, 23 days, it's down to about 8%. I can finish turning that. It hasn't been so long, I haven't got so old then that I forgot what I was trying to do.
You put in alcohol, is that just overnight? Or you
No,
just
no,
put it in
the alcohol, there are people who put it in there for days, some people overnight. I put it in there, I leave it in the alcohol 1 hour for every 1/4 of an inch thick, and that works for me. I take it out, I dry it off, let it sit for maybe about 1 hour, then I weigh it, I take a moisture meter reading, put a date on it. And then you say, well, how do you know, well, your alcohol is still good? I know that within X number of days, it should be down to a certain level. When I get pieces that are taking longer, then hey, I'll dump the alcohol, that batch of alcohol, and get some more. But it lasts, you don't get fumes on it like you do on lacquer thinner and that kind of stuff. I guess it's combustible, but it's not, you don't get the fumes floating out, because I had forgotten and left the thing open. If I did that to lacquer thinner the next morning, it'd all be gone. So it works a little bit different, but it does work. So if you got something, projects, and you don't want to wait 6 or 7 months for this stuff to dry, use the alcohol. And everybody says, well, why do you use alcohol in the first place? Because found wood or wood logs are cheaper than our good friends wood selling out here. Another thing about wood that you buy from the dealers and stuff like that, if it's got wax on it, it's wet. It's wet.
You buy that stuff in bulk, Frank?
What?
The alcohol.
The last batch I bought in bulk from Home Depot, and I got a 5-gallon container, costs like $40-some. By the can, it's anywhere from what, $13, $16, all depends on where you buy it. Yes, sir.
What's the ideal moisture content for the flat
About 8%. 8%. Here in Georgia, it's not going to get much less than that. Now, if you're out in Colorado, where it's bone dry, it's probably going to go down a little more than that. All I want to do now is make this round. Max. Okay. I'm not going to make this round.
It's natural wool.
Natural edge, okay. That was the big tool. I'm going to use the smaller one because I don't want to accidentally rip the bark off, and I hear it's a little loose. Little pull cut, biting into the wood, bevel rubbing, cuts coming from the left-hand side of the tool. Hand on the tool rest, and the tool resting against my turning muscle. Okay.
Do you put the wood completely submerged in that alcohol?
Completely submerged, yeah. Completely. All I want to do is now is take this all the way to the top where I'm cutting the bark all the way around, and then there's some adjustments I'm going to make so that the highs are the same and the lows are the same. When you get up near the bark area, make your cut smaller so you don't put as much stress on the bark. Stop and look where you're at. If the bark looks like it's coming out or gonna slip on you, get out the super glue. Super glue is a wood turner's best friend. Okay, let's see if I set here. One more little cut. After you've done this a while, especially with a natural edge bowl, you watch the shape up there as opposed to the tool. I tell all new students, I says, yeah, until you train your tools to do what you tell them to do, you have to look at them and watch them and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. But then there comes a time, right, where you put the tool there and you, from what do they call that? Muscle memory and all that kind of good stuff. You know where the tool is, what it's supposed to be doing. Then you can watch the material coming up off up there and you get a much better shape. Okay. Now I want to take, this is a high side, that's a high side. I'm using my finger here to line up the bark and the cambium layer here, and everything's just working perfectly this morning. They're the same. Then I want to go to the low side over here, and that's got a little peak on it. Let's go about right here and see what. Okay. I guess, you know, like somebody told Chris Stott one day, Chris was doing something, he's trying to get a box to fit, and the first time he did it fit, and the guy says, "Oh, you're lucky." And he put down the box, and Chris says, "No, the more you practice, the luckier you get." So it's just, you've done it enough. I kind of, looks like I lined this up perfectly the first time. Now I want to put my foot on here, plus I'm going to change the shape. And because the wood is going in and out in different shapes, I might have to adjust this again. So I'm going to leave that a little big. Come here, my foot's going to be down there someplace. Smaller tool yet, 1/4 inch bowl gouge. Less stress on the wood, and because it is smaller, it makes you take a smaller cut. This is where you really need to be in touch with your tools. I'm picking up the edge there. Little cut. That's slipping from being in there. Hopefully a hole for it. See, instead of that shape coming out like that, I want more of a shape like that. Okay. See my grain.
How deep do you want to make that foot? Like,
What's this?
yeah,
But one way says that 3/16 of an inch. unless you get a catastrophic catch. I said, make it 1/4 of an inch to be safe. Let's see. Looks good, looks good. Now this side is there.
What's your goal again there? You're trying to,
I'm trying to get the low sides to match the low side on the other side. Everybody, you look at a natural edge bowl and the highs are the same and the lows are the same. Sometimes you hit and miss and get it there, but if you really want to make sure, let's see. I'm going to have to leave that because this is on this side and it's almost the opposite there. If I move this up a little bit, let's see what happens. If I move it up just a little bit, see what difference that makes with the rest of it. Now because I did move it, I'm going to have to reshape the bowl. I'm going back and turn it out my latest wiggle. Come back up here, take the smaller tool, pick up my bark edge. Okay, I see I'm not cutting in enough. One, okay, that's fine, but then okay, ooh, but I'm off there. See, this side is high now, this is low. Let me move this. Looks like we're halfway, we're going not all the way back, we're going just at an angle from where we were. Adjust it again. I think this is going to be the final adjustment. Pick up my shadow, feel for it, I got it, come back out to the edge. Take light cuts while you're out here, little cuts, because you want to save your bark. Okay, one, good, that's fine. Okay, you see what I was doing? If this side was higher than the other side, then I would loosen this, tilt this back this way a little bit, and keep using my finger to do these two low sides, the two high sides. And then at the end, when the bowl's finished, so how'd you do that? And you just tell people it's magic. And see, my bowl, rather than a deep bowl, I kind of like, almost like a little platter type arrangement with this. Get some of this out of the way. It's almost there. That flat area there is what the bowl is eventually going to sit in. So this bulk in here, I'm going to move that out of the way. This one you want to get as smooth as you can, because you aren't going to put this back on and sand it. It's too wet now to sand, so whatever surface you end up with here, that's those lines and all those things you're going to have to sand out. So I'm taking a look now. Okay, I'm going to make this as smooth as I can. It's not the tool I want. Let's see, what have I got? It's a bigger tool, 5/8 inch tool. And instead of riding the bevel, I'm going to come up on the lower edge of this tool, very gently. Shear scrape. I'm just getting out as many lines as I can for my final. When I come back to this after it dries, get my shape, finish my shape off. That area I'm touching now, that's eventually, this is what the bowl's going to sit on. Go back in here, get my little 90 degrees in here, so when I turn this around. Now this one needs to run true. This does not go back on the lathe. Once this is dry, I'll leave a little foot on here so I can put it in the chuck. I got something to hold it as I hand sand it. Now there are people who will put this back, leave it thicker than their final finish, but I don't do that. Make sure that's fit that perfect. Okay.
Frank, if I understand that right, you don't worry about that thing warping.
Yeah, well that adds to, on the natural edge, that kind of adds to it, I think.
Okay.
And see the shape we've got out of there? Being shallow, where the other one is round, it's round going down. Now this is the truth. This I want to run true, because I'm going to probably only leave this maybe about a 1/4 of an inch thick. And a little bit thinner than that. If this is wobbling, that's running pretty true. If this was wobbling a little bit, then I'd have one side that's going to be thinner than the other side. That's where I want it. Get my little teeth in there. Temporarily for the first few cuts, bring that up for, make sure that doesn't want to fly out of there. Make sure it clears. Ever see? Oh. Like I said before, I'm not going to take any more of the center out of that. I'm going to take this level and go out and establish my wall thickness. I want the mass there. If I go down here and work to the outside. By the time I get out here, that's gone. Stresses are released. The bowl is drying. It's going to flop around too much. So leave the mass in there. Go down. This is not the one I want. Okay. And when I do go to demonstrations, you'll see me, I'll take tools with handles. If I took all my tools were handled, then I would have a bucket full of handles. Then I use my turning tools. I try to use the one-way tools, which are double-ended. I'll usually carry 3 of these, 2 of the big ones, and 2 of the small ones, and that's usually enough to get me through a demonstration. So it's not like, oh boy, he's using those dull tools all the time. I'm switching out too. Getting up a little speed here. Light cut. Then my smaller tool, because it forces me to take a smaller cut. And I want to, I want to be able to see the shadow there. Tool on the inside, in the background. What's that?
Will the bark edge be the same
Yes.
thickness as the side of the bowl?
Yes. Okay, that's the thickness I want. It's a hair under 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I've established that. I need one more little cut down here to get past this part that might come off. Light cut. Light cut. Okay. Okay. Everybody see what's happening there? And this little gouge there is where this was sawed. I'm going to go back and just lightly, with the shear scrape, kind of clean this up a little bit. Once I do that section, take out some more, I can't go back up there. It's bouncing around too much. So I take out another inch or so. Line up the outside. Stopped often. Measure. Calibrated fingers there. Okay, that's as good as that's going to get. Now I'm fairly deep now. I can kind of rush this and get the rest of this out of here. That's about right. Using the bigger tool because I'm hung over this, I'm hung a good 2 inches now. The more you are over the tool rest, the heavier tool you need. And keep adjusting the tool rest inside so that you're as close to the wood, you don't lose your leverage. Down a little bit. Little bump. It's better to have a little bump there to sand down to. If you wiggle around trying to get that flat and you get a little hole, then that means you got to break the rest of it down there. So it's better to have a little bump than to have a hole. Take about another 30 seconds of an inch off here. Didn't lose the bark, and I'm pretty thin. If you can look at the grain would be just, pardon me, going around, but it's nice because I've got a branch that was going out that way, and that's what's creating that beautiful, the features in there. I'll let that go around. Now, okay.
That did, how soon do you think you can sand that, Frank?
Now that one probably, I'll still put in alcohol. That one probably be ready to go in 10 days or less. I've got 2 bowls here. I'm gonna do this one. That was turned, put in alcohol. The date on this one. Ooh, this is an old one. 111, so that's 2 years old. It's dry, but I've got my date on it, and I also have to weight. It originally, I don't know, I didn't weigh it again. It weighed 2 1/3 pounds. It's probably a third. He's probably lost a third of that now. Okay, because this thing is warped. Thank you, sir. First thing you want to do is true up your tenon. That little hole that you leave on the back, that's what you want to try and line up with.
You still have the chuck on there?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's against the choke.
I thought that's what you did, but I couldn't see it.
yeah. Well, see, I'm not worried about the chuck marring it because I'm going to go down in there and take some stuff out of there anyway. On the final, I'll put a pad in there. Now I've got that lined up right where it was, but you can see how much it's warped. And that's why you leave it thick, so you've got enough wood to turn the warp out and still have some bowls left. Now that's pretty good. There are a lot of these things where it all depends on the wood you take. I mean, they're bowls where I've left them an inch thick. Of course, they were 14 inches across, and there's no way I could get a bowl out of it. First thing I want to do is put my tenon, screw up my tenon, because it's warped too. And I'm gonna make a smaller one on this because I used the bigger chuck when I finish this, but I can use the smaller one now. The bowl's a lot lighter. Remember, that's gonna go away. Come in here. That's going to be my foot. Let's flatten this across. Truing this up is where I found that people make mistakes. They don't do anything to this tenon. They do the outside, and they find out the inside won't run true. First thing you want to do is clean that up. That's pretty clean. I'm going to wait until I do this ball. But now I want to go, this is where okay, this is the final shot. I'm going to try to make this bowl the final shape. And you don't want, well, can you see how much it's out of shape? Okay. If you use a heavy tool, the heavy tool wants to bounce. If you take a heavy tool and light cuts, if you've got to remove a 32nd of an inch, sometimes it starts to bounce. Don't try and take it all at once. Take a little bit, come back. Okay, I got solid bowl all the way around. You can see where I started here. I'm here, hitting there, not touching there. That's how much it's out. I do want to establish, no, I can't do that yet. I will do that. That's going to be the top of my bowl. Rest of that's going to disappear. Okay. I also want to leave just a little lip on that, so I have to be aware of where I'm at, how much I'm cutting away. Here again, down, they don't have to be that much, but never up. You use it up, you get a catch, it feeds into the wood. If it's pointed down, it kicks it out away from the wood. And all I'm trying to do is prepare that for the minimum amount of sanding. Mike Mahoney tells the story about, Mike makes salad bowls, lots of them, and he had some cooks from someplace that came in. They wanted to see his, how he did these salad bowls and all this kind of stuff. And so he had this big 15-inch bowl on, and when he finished, well, pardon me, when excuse me, we've got a paper towel in here. Would you please? Usually, if once I get it out, it's usually gone. Well, the thing is, the guy, once he got through with this part, the shear scraping and everything, Mike was going to go through his sanding, and the guy says, no, don't do that. Leave it like that. And the guy says, well, how much does it cost with a natural finish, just out with the tool marks? Mike, being the salesman that he is, he doubled the price. Double the price. The guy took it, told his friend, then everybody wanted theirs like that. It's all about that market, right? Get something and find the market for it. Okay, it's got a little bump in there. Need to get out. Get that out. Here's your scraper. It has a negative rake on it, meaning that it just doesn't have one angle. It's sharpened on both sides. fan I can sand. Okay, that's finished. That's ready to sand. By the way, when I said ready to sand on this side, before I turn it around, I would sand it. Here that I've done this part, I would sand it. Now, all that matters is taking this little foot off. Where's my mouse pad? Okay, I don't see it, but this will work. And that paper's just to protect. I usually have got a couple of real thick mouse pads that I use. Right back. That little ridge, huh?
Got that plastic wrap you put on there if you need more.
Oh no, that's too thin. See, I don't want the jaw to bite into that. Okay. This is wobble a little bit up there. I don't really care about that. Only thing I care about is this little part down here. Here we go again. We go to our small tools. Just eke away a little at a time. The bottom you want concave so that the bowl warps a little bit. It sits on the edge, as opposed to if it's flat and it warps, it wants to sit there and rock. This is my little 1/4 inch bowl gouge. I use it just like I would use a spindle gouge until I have to get into a real tight space.
I'm not a fan. What's the difference in a bowl gouge and spindle gouge?
The flute. Let me see if I can. Do I have? Oh. If we take a look here, we notice that on the spindle gouge, the flute is a lot shallower. The bowl gouge is deeper. It's so that chips will flow and peel out of there a little easier. The bigger the bowl gouge is, the deeper that is, and these get bigger too. Make sure, okay. And then just to let folks that knew that, you know, you can put some thought in it. I usually put a couple of lines. By the way, I would have sanded this. Yeah, decoration, yeah. You should recognize that grind. That's the Mark Soleil grind. Do what?
How you gonna sand it once you do away with this?
You just said I would have sanded it.
Yeah, I would have sanded them.
He's not gonna sand it, then we can sell it for more.
Yeah, that's right. I'll leave it plain.
He wants it natural, he wants it natural. We want it rougher, a little rustic.
This is what I call the Clint Eastwood part of the demo. And it's about how lucky do you feel getting that little piece in there. And I usually get it down to about 1/4 of an inch. Let's stop. I mean, you put a lot of time into this. Let's not get crazy. This is just a carving spoon. Put it in against. Twist it. sanded and everything, and the finish on it, that's the finished bowl. Any questions?
I noticed when you're doing those finish cuts there, after it's dried, you're doing a push cut, almost
Yes.
exclusively.
Yeah.
But when you were roughing, you were doing pull cuts more.
Well, okay, it's just easier.
The pull cut,
The pull cut is a tool, especially on what you remove more wood, but because you're pulling it towards you, it's hard to design the bowl because you're not really looking up here. Where on the push cut, you're pushing, you know where the tool's going, and you can look up there and see what's going on. Like when I was on the inside, I was not looking at where the tool was, I was looking at the shavings coming off, and that showed me how much material I was taking off over there. It's just my habit, you know, the way I do it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When you did the inside of the bowl, it looks like you did sectional parts with the, you know, the bowl gouge or the spindle gouge. Then you went with your scraper.
Scraper, cleaning it up.
Why not do scraper all at once? Was there a reason for that?
Yeah. When I start at the top, I'm establishing the bowl thickness.
Right.
Okay, I've got a little weight in that bowl, even though it's thin. I need that weight, and I should have showed it to you before I took it off. I guarantee you from where it was, before I took that weight out, it was running true, but by the time I got to the end, it was wiggling a little bit because I've released more stresses, and it wants to float out. That's why I did it in sections. In fact, if there was one, when I got down to that second section, I came back up into that first section a little bit. It went hollowed a little bit. That's because it's starting to warp a little bit. And you just take it out in sections. Even the wet stuff, take it out in sections, and it doesn't move as much on you. Or if it does move, you clean it up, don't come back to that area. That's all that's about. For those of you who are interested, one of the things I do give lessons, private lessons. And one of the things I do that a lot of people don't do, I'll come to your shop, and we establish a price. I take charge cards and everything. But let me tell you this, all the turners, I get, most of the time I do in someone's shop, it's somebody that's been turning a while. And this is something you need to work on. I don't know whether you got a tape library. If you don't, find somebody that's got one. When I go to a person's shop that's having problems, 70% of the time, and I'm not kidding you, 70% of the time, the problem they're having is sharpening their tools, or the way their tools are sharpened. If you'll notice, on the tool, my wings come back. See how the wings come back on that? There should not be a bubble up there. If I put this down into the wood, and there's a bubble up there, and that bubble touched first, and they always say, well, my tool skates on me, I can't get it started. It's usually because they haven't sharpened their tools right, or they're not sharpening the same way every time. So if anything else, go home and take a look. If you're having trouble getting in and out of a bowl, look at your tool. There's some books around. Get that angle right. And even the angle, not this cross here, but this angle is ever evolving for every turn. I don't know a turner yet that's turned more than 5 years that's using the same grind that he used 5 years ago. But check your grind. But if you like to have some lessons, give me a call and we can work something out. Other than that, any questions?
do you have a website?
No, not yet. I had one, but I don't have one right now. What good would a website do? Oh. People, well, yeah, they would. Yeah. One of the things I do, I make a lot of, I call it piecework. Anybody you guys know Bill Dean? Bill Dean is 92 years old. Bill turns almost every day. You know what he makes? Cremation urns. Cremation urns. And I make,
He loved most of his buddies.
that's right, you know. I make an acorn for him that Willard Baxter started. It's a light colored bottom and a walnut top that's threaded. And I make about 25 to 30 of those a month for him, and there's about four other people I make. So I make about 50 to 60 acorns a month. And I say the acorns pay the bills. They pay the shop costs and all that kind of stuff. It allows me to do the other crazy things I want to do. But there are a lot of yeah, I make them for him. You know, I wholesale them out the bill, and then Bill, because he's got the connections with his urns and stuff, so he sells he marks them up a little bit and sells them to the funeral homes. I don't want to get into the business like he is. I know that I have to do X amount of acorns a month. So usually the first of the month I'll get, I usually make the bottom out of honey mesquite. And I'll get a load of that and I'll cut them all up. One day I'll cut them all up. One day I'll cut up all the walnut tops. Then I'll turn the tops, just the inside, and thread them. Do them all, put them aside. Then I'll take the bottom, thread the bottom, not shape the outside. Because each one, when I thread them, I'll match the top to the bottom. Okay, once I get that done, then I'll go back, shape. One day I'll shape all the tops, then I'll shape all the bottoms like that, get them all done. But I don't want to get tied up like you guys know Clark, McMullen. Clark.
Bill, I don't know Bill. He's competing with Clark.
No, well, he got Clark started. There's a little feud going on. Bill agreed to show him how to get started if he did not bother any of his customer. But Clark, our good buddy, being the person he is, he did run into some of Bill's customers. But he's not competing with. But Bill's got his own line of customers. In fact, he doesn't call them as much. He's not trying to make as many. But he makes quite a few urns, you know, quite a few urns. Yes, sir.
Back to the alcohol, when you were talking about soaking and then taking it out after a couple hours to check it, is this a continuous soak over those days?
No, just that one time. Once you take an hour for every quarter of an inch, take it out, dry it off, set it in, I say a quiet place. That means a place where no sunlight showing on the thing, no breezes going by. Because the thing that makes wood check is you get one side or one piece of it drying quicker than the other. Now, the one thing I found, and I do like, I just ran into a bunch of it last week, was I had some cherry, and it was quite small, so I ended up with a lot of sapwood in the cherry. Sapwood dries quicker than the rest of the wood, and he wants to split. So what I do the alcohol thing on it, but then I'll take, what is it, what's that finish?
Some poly or something.
Like a lacquer finish or something? Huh?
Shellac.
No, not shellac.
Mineral sanding sealer?
No. Well, it's something like that. And I'll just spray that over the sapwood, and it slows down the drying. And I haven't lost any bowls that way, because I had some beautiful cherry bowls. They're about 19 inches across, and they had sapwood. And the day I turned them, and I had to go get a new Rubbermaid tub to dry them in, because they're big enough. And the next morning about 2 days later, I got a beautiful crack right where the sapwood and those met. So I talked to somebody and he said, well, just spray that part and slow down the drying. And so I haven't lost one since then.
You're not using a rattle can lacquer or acrylic or something like that?
Yeah, acrylic spray. You know, the high, and I'll just spray that. In fact, Mark, that's what Mark, everybody else is using the end grain sealer. Mark uses the acrylic stuff to seal his wood, that kind of stuff, when he does. Yeah.
Now, does the alcohol go bad because after a while it gets too saturated with the water?
Well, I think, what happens is, and we're going to ask the guy here, this is part of the engineering stuff. I missed the chemical part of this person here. Was, if you live up north, one of the things you do in October every year, you go and you buy this can of stuff they call heat. It's red, you pour it in your gas tank. What happens, to make a long story, if you take a cup of water and a cup of denatured alcohol and pour them together, you'll end up with less than 2 cups of water. 2 cups of liquid. Because I guess the water molecules mixed with the alcohol, there's some space in there, it picks it up, and because the alcohol dries faster, it just takes it with. Everybody says, well, it gets rid of the water. It really doesn't get rid of the water in your gas tank. It kind of merges with it. The alcohol will burn, and the little knocking that it causes is so minor you don't notice when it goes through your system. And then eventually, I guess there's enough water where it's not doing its job anymore, you throw it away. But it lasts a while, you know. Unless you, like me, I'm almost turning almost every day. You were talking 15, 20 wet pieces minimum a month. And I've gone over a year on 5 gallons and that kind of stuff.
On a natural edge bowl, I would assume that you've got to do something pretty quick with the finish or you'll lose your edge, right?
Why lose that?
Because bark wants to fall.
Oh, well, that one thing, when you start to sand that, you want to take, and I may have one with me. Hobby Lobby sells these. These fit on a super glue bottle. It allows you to put a little bead of super glue right wherever you want it. They get clogged up, put it in a little tub of acetone and blow it out, it cleans right out. But what I do while I'm sanding, before I get to the final sanding, I will run a bead of super glue right at the bark and the cambium layer. If I've really got the time, I will take shellac, because everybody knows everything sticks to shellac, right? I will run shellac all the way around where glue might spill on the inside and out, and I will run the glue, so hopefully the glue goes between the cambium layer and the bark, and I'll just soak the bark too, because people, I don't know why, they want to pick things up by the bark as opposed to putting their fingers over the bowl. But you've got to do something in most, otherwise the bark's going to pop off. Occasionally one piece they'll get a little bit to come undone, so you just mix up some bark and go back to the epoxy and make you fill it in.
Thin CA or thin?
Oh yeah, thin. The thin CA glue when you're gluing the whole thing. If you got a part where it's buckled a little bit and you got like a 32nd of an inch and you don't want to press it down, get some bark and get some what did I just say? Epoxy. Mix that up and put it in. Yeah. But these little things, you get a package of these like for $2 or $3. And they work. They work very well, very well. And Hobby Lobby sells them. A couple of the hobby shops, model railroad shops, and those sell. But Hobby Lobby, they have them over where the glue is. Yeah, where the glue is. But it allows you to put a bead of glue right where you want it. Right where you want it. Yeah.
How many's in a pack for $2 or $3?
There's 7 or 8. The thing is, and they last.
If you guys want some, let me know what you want. I can get 1,000 of them for $20.
Oh.
You haven't looked at the age of most of the people in here, have you?
see, he's held his secret all this time. He didn't tell you guys. But in fact,
My background is I'm a molecular biologist. And I don't know how many millions of those things I've used in my career.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, the guy Leon Thomas introduced me to these. Leon. But like I said, when it gets clogged up, I just drop it in a little tray. Yes, sir.
With all the green wood turning that you do, where do you get all your wood? I mean, they're too fast people.
Okay.
Can't say anything.
There is no. George, if you got access to the Georgia Association Wood Turners, the club that used to meet down at Highland, get a hold of their newsletter. There's a whole list. There are, in fact, there's 5 or 6 guys listed in there. One guy's got a sawmill and he's cutting up. But they're people that you get on their calling list, they get a log, I get an email pop up, and they get to the point now, they'll show you, the guy sent me a picture of some of the most beautiful ambrosia maple I'd ever seen. And we went out there one day, and Mark and we got some, and I turned it, we went back the next day and bought the rest of it, that kind of stuff. But there are people in the area, who's your newsletter person, I can get that information, all the wood guys that we use. I mean, there are people all over the place that's selling wood, They in fact, you can buy it in log form, they'll cut it for you, whatever you want. But there's wood out there.
What would a crotch like you just turned today,
that was a piece of a log. The whole thing with the crotch was about that long. That cost me, I think, $20.
Okay.
$20. $20. Yeah.
I know my in-laws live in western Tennessee, and their tree, like we have pine trees in the area they live in, are cherry trees.
Yeah.
Anytime I go up there, I get.
Yeah. And see, that's the other thing, people have got trees coming out, and they find out that you like wood, they'll call you.
Yeah. Get to know your local tree cutter who also sells
Yeah.
firewood.
Yeah.
Because if he sells firebwood, he's still cutting it up into 18-inch blocks.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to split those crotches anyway.
No. Especially crotches. I just love those things.
Now, are you cutting your crotches in half with a chainsaw or a bandsaw?
Those, I took my chances last night and cut those with the bandsaw. Normally, if they're bigger than that, I'll cut them with the chainsaw. In fact, the bowls this size, I usually wait around till around Father's Day, just before Father's Day. Then I go out to our engraver friend, and I'll just have the bottom engraved that says Dad's Change. And kids buy these, and you got to talk them up a little bit. Dad puts his change and his keys in there, and the kids know where the change is. Yeah, but it's a nice little bowl that you sit someplace, and it's there. And people say, well, how do you remember? You put your keys because there's a place for them, It's like if you got a hook for your keys, you put them in there. If most of us put our keys in the same place all the time. So if you got a little bowl or something, usually for the keys, I make this just a little bit smaller, but it works. Now, when that gets a finish on, all this little grain work is really going to pop out of there.
Right, when you split a crotch piece, do you take a pith slab out of the center before you?
If it's a big enough piece, In fact, I just finished a walnut piece that was 13, 14 inches across that came out of a piece of walnut that we got, I'll try and get, in fact, I'll go just to the left of the pith, right of the pith, and try, if it's big enough, and get one on either side, then get the natural edge out the other side, yeah.
Frank, for people who aren't familiar with that, explain why you don't want pith on there.
The pith, if wood's gonna split anyway, the first place it splits is the pith. That's the piece that goes down the middle. That's gonna crack while it's alive, let alone once it dies. Yeah. But I will get the list of folks that, and you probably, guys that go to some of the other companies have seen these guys that sell wood. They sell it in log form, and most of you can get it, any size you want, get it cut up.
Russell Eden.
Yeah, Russell Eden. Yeah, Russell just got a great big, what do they call that thing?
He got a wood miser.
No, he don't have a wood miser. He's got one that's bigger than the wood miser. Uh-oh. Speak of the devil. There's a call from Bill Dean. He must be getting low or something.
Sure, his friends are rolling
He
fast.
should have been making acorns.
Yeah, wait, hang on. Let me see if I got Russell's sawmill here. Camera roll.
Because of the business limitations, it doesn't work here, but most turning groups, clubs, have raffles of wood.
Yeah.
You've got 6 tickets for $5, and in a few months, But Frank didn't tell you the whole story about preparing this wood. As you get it, you'll have so much, it begins to rot, and then eventually you just throw about 2/3 of what you have back in the woods because it's got too rotten to turn. Finding wood, it's a big deal.
There's Russell's machine. Yeah. And he said, this thing is, if he rolls the wood up on those little forks, it will lift it on. He can lift all hydraulics. He can go right down, he can, wherever the middle here, he can lower it, get it down the middle and just cut slabs. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's,
JK,
Stephen Brown.
GK, KG.
CAG, Stephen Brown.
yeah. I'll send you that list. There's Russell, and then there's another guy out in Snellville that's fairly new at it. Marty something.
Don't forget, there's plenty of wood out here for sale too.
Yeah. Yeah, they watch it by the wood out there too, you know. Thank you. Thank you.